Did that work? Oh, yeah, it did. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. It is July 22nd. It's a Tuesday. My name is Everett DeLorme, and today we're going to talk about volleyball. As you know, if you're watching this, you probably know that the VNL playoffs are set. The teams are done. The preliminary round is over. Week 3 was insane. It was insanity. It was craziness. We already have Luke D in the chat being Vamos los Cubanos. And yeah, absolutely. Vamos los Cubanos. One of the most surprising teams so far this VNL. They make the playoffs. Look at that. We're looking at the standings right here in front of us. Really, that the last week, what it came down to and the teams that were fighting for a playoff spot was crazy. First and foremost, you'll note Brazil takes number 1 spot. We're going to talk about them. I doubt them every year, and every year they come back to me. So I don't know what to do anymore. I'm done doubting Brazil, but we'll get into that. Bottom spot, the Dutch. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to the only orange team that we have in the VNL, which is a little sad, but they kind of deserved it. So we will touch on that as well. Well, first and foremost, I think we got to talk about the final 8 teams that are making it to the playoffs. Brazil, Italy, Japan, Poland, France, Cuba, China. Obviously, they're hosting, so we're expecting that. And Slovenia. They got some good wins down the road as well. But man, this Brazilian team, every single year, I start to doubt them. Do they have enough? Do they have what it takes? Is this team good enough to be able to be a top team in the world like they have been? And they go 11-1. They go 11-1 over the course of this VNL. The only team that they didn't play, I think, was Italy. They played Poland. They played France. Oh no, they did beat Italy. Never mind. The only big team that they didn't play was France, but they beat Italy. They beat Poland. They 3-donged Japan this past week. They are looking very, very good. They're looking well-rounded, and they did all of this without using Lucarelli, basically. We saw him a little bit over the course of one match. But other than that, Brazil is absolutely rolling. And they've started getting in some new guys. Like we saw Lucas Bergman. Over the course of quite a bit of this time, we saw Arthur Bento as well too. We saw both of the Souza brothers on the right side. So it seems like Bernardinho is having some fun with this team. And the big thing for me is that this team can pass. Right? I think they're like 51% positive and 26 or 27% perfect. And when they have that, it allows Cachopa to be in system. And it turns out that he's an absolute maestro, bringing us back to the Monza 2023, 2024 days when he can just run that offense, run it the way he wants to. And it looks beautiful, especially with the way they run the middles with Flavio and Judson. You know, this is a team as well without Thales Hos. This is a team without Lucarelli. So this Brazilian team, I think, is here to stay. We were expecting them maybe to take a bit of a dip after losing that golden generation, and you lose Lucas and you lose Bruno and, you know, you lose some of these other guys, Leal as well, of course. But man, Brazil looks really, really good, and they showed that over the course of this intercontinental round. They brought out pretty much all the guys other than like Lucarelli and Thales, and they were able to get that job done. And I know that Brazilian fans out there absolutely love to see it, and I think it's good, right? Brazil being good at volleyball is good for volleyball, no doubt about it. Yeah, and like we talked about it before, Luke D, you just said it in the chat. Oh, I have a nice little. I like spilt water as I was drinking it right before the show. It looks like I'm sweating on myself. Not great, not a great look, but yeah, the Brazil resurgence is incredible. Cachopa is really, really good. And even guys like Bergman have started to impress me. So, yeah, it's awesome. Honestly, we're not going to talk about all the teams today. I don't feel like there's a need to. I'm going to pick and choose who I want to talk about. Next team has to be Poland. Do we call that a disappointing week 2? I mean, you go out there and you lose some key matches. But then ultimately you're able to keep on to the number 1 spot in the world, beating France the way that they did. It was an interesting run there for Poland at the end of their week. You know, you thought that, hey, they're going to be at home. They're going to be able to play strong, right? They're going to be able to finish strong. And instead, they go to 5 with Iran, which that's a rivalry that needs to get heated up. And like, I should have an Iran slide here and I don't, but we will touch on them because Piazza's Iran is really fun to watch and they're feisty and fiery. But yeah, relight up that rivalry in an awesome 5-setter. And then Poland goes on to lose in 4 to Cuba and then lose an epic one against Bulgaria. And I mean, that one against Bulgaria was a little bit questionable. Moni was even on the bench, but we know, everyone's seen it. That man loves the spotlight. He loves doing what he's doing, and just goes back there off the bench, rips a walk-off ace on Leon to finish it. Whoo! Hoo-wee! Hoo-wee! That was crazy. And yeah, John the Master, you're absolutely right. Poland got was up 24-21 on Cuba, and ended up losing it there in that last set. So this Polish team, I honestly don't know where they're losing their points, to be perfectly honest. It's tough to watch sometimes. It really is, because this is not a team. Like, this is a team that should be able to run at all times. With the depth that Poland has, you shouldn't even need Leon. And you should be able to go wait with Fornal and Semeniuk, but still, they struggle. Their numbers on the outset aren't terrible. 44% positive passing could be a little bit better. There's no doubt about that. 37% efficiency is really not that terrible. Their serving is like a minus 12% overall. It's 57 aces to 214 errors. And problem is that there's no way for me to decipher any of this to see how it compares to anyone else. I mean, I guess I could, but I'd have to go and make my own stat sheets because, volleyball is volleyball, and we don't have the simplest of stats. It really sucks. The Polish serve receive is kind of bad, but you've got big bangers everywhere. And you have setters who can set them. Gerbich said it. Yeah, there's nothing to blame but their confidence and mental. Yeah, and that's what I fully agree. Like, when I see, like, watching Italy, for example, just seems like they're not even engaged. Like, they're bored. So that makes sense to me. Whereas at Poland, it just seems like they're holding the stick too tight and they're trying to be too much all at once. And it really just doesn't suit them all that well. I think they just need to. It's funny because, I hear about the Plus Liga and it being a very fun league. That people go out there and have a lot of fun. Like, apparently it's not uncommon for the team bus to stop off at a nice little corner store, pick up a few road beers for the boys, as you're on your way, type of thing. Whereas in other leagues that might not happen. But with this Polish national team, it just seems like they're just holding the stick a little bit too tight, and maybe they just need to have a little fun. But ultimately, they still make it into the playoffs, of course. But I do want to talk about the final match because that one was crazy. Obviously, France is not the French national team that we're used to. They're missing a few pieces. They got some younger guys coming through, but you've still got Clevenot out there. You still got Brizard, Cheninese. You've still got a lot of quality out there, but that was an absolute banger of a match. Just back and forth, a little bit sloppy. I think we can say it for sure, but Leon coming out that one and an absolute monster of a 30 bomb. What was he? 24 for 46, 52% swinging with a 43% efficiency, 3 blocks, 3 aces. He was a monster. He was an absolute monster, and you could tell that he was upset with how that team had played against Cuba, frankly, all week at home, against Iran, against Cuba, against Bulgaria. They should have, honestly, with those 3 teams ahead of them, with this roster, it should have been 3 easy wins. They should have had 9 points. Instead, they were sitting on 4. No, not even. They were sitting on 3, a 5-set win and a 5-set loss, which is not what Poland wanted to do, and you could tell. Leon was absolute beast mode, 30-point performance to clinch the win, and more importantly, it also kept them at the number 1 spot in the world. It's been really, really close, right at the top there between Italy and Poland, and of course Brazil. No, France. That's who they're playing for. And yeah, it was really, really close. Hanno choked in the 5th. Yeah, maybe. I don't really necessarily want to focus on what's happening on the France side of things. I more so want to focus on what was happening on the Polish side of things. But yeah, you're not wrong. Hanno wasn't great in the fifth, but that's the difference for me between, like, France can just shake this off as a losing like a learning opportunity, right? You have guys like Hanno in there. You guys like Guy in the middle. Till Folk is still getting used to playing at these big levels and these big stages. So for France, it's just a learning opportunity. But for Poland, that's why it's a must win. And even then, like, even with that roster that was in front of them in normal times, that should be an easy, right? France is playing with Klevno and a young Matisse Heno on the left side. Like, that should be an easy 3-up, 3-down for Poland, and instead they struggled through it. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they continue on throughout the rest of the VNL. Of course, they're going to be headed to the playoffs, but yeah, it will be quite interesting. We'll go back, as I mentioned, Leon, 30 points, absolute monster performance from him, as he, he's going for GOAT status. So he has to have some of these matches in those big moments. Next up, the Dutch headed home. They are done. And you know what? I wish I could say I was sad to see them go, but the reality is that they're just not that interesting to watch. I'm sorry to say. And the fact that Belgium is coming up, right? Like, those two countries are right beside each other. As a North American, I see a lot of similarities. I know there's a lot of differences. Don't come at me, Europeans. I know, but still, in terms of like where they stand in the volleyball world, I'd actually rate Belgium a little bit higher on like the pro and club scene, because you have quality clubs like Maaseik and Knack Roselair, whereas you don't have that same kind of quality in the Dutch league. But I've gotten to watch the Dutch play quite a bit over the past few years in person, and they just don't play that interesting of a style of a game. And you've had Namir that has dominated everything for years. They don't even have bring in Termat for this year. They lose Piazza. I was talking about it at one of the live streams and watch-alongs that I was doing at some point, and Steven Maher came in and he said he's going to be the Dutch, and that this is a big learning curve for a new head coach, like someone like Joel Banks, and that roster didn't really have it, and they didn't. It was really like Serbia, who's on the other side of the coin. They came to play this past week, and we were ready to out there to play. Like, Serbia came to ball. When Serbia beat Ukraine, that was when things that was when things really started falling apart for the Dutch. And then, the really, really must-win game for them was against Canada, and they didn't even show up. Right, it was all Canada the entire time, and it was a three-dong for us. So, was it? Yeah, I think it was a three-dong. I can't really remember. But it's. I wish I could say I'm sad to see the Dutch go, but I don't really think I am. They don't really have any really exciting prospects coming up. Like, there's no one that I'm going to be like sad to watch from this team. So, yeah. It is what it is, thanks to the Dutch. But on the other side, Serbia, Serbia, man, they woke up, slapped Ukraine, and then tossed us around after we tossed them around in the first set, and just really closed out their VNL in a strong style, which is what they needed to do, right? They needed to come in and really put some respect on their name, and they were able to do that. Like, what did they finish out here? They got thrashed by Italy 15-14-16, and I really wonder what happened. I really wish I would have been in that locker room after they got thrashed by Italy, because I've always known Serbians in general to be very proud people, especially of their sporting accomplishments, right? So that the losing that they had gone through was unacceptable. And then they went in and absolutely dominated Ukraine. Well, we will talk about Ukraine in a little bit, because they are the biggest losers, I think, of week number 3. but like we'll talk about them a little bit. And Serbia just kind of turned on. They started playing with a little bit of attitude, and like we can go into the stats and all that stuff, but I don't really think that all that matters. But like we saw it in their change of game from the set 1 to set number 2 when they were playing against Canada, is that they started playing with that attitude, with that chip on their shoulder, with that Serbian fire that we're used to seeing them play. Like Ivovic was starting to be a little bit chippy. Same thing with Luberic. Like Nedeljkovic was bombing. Like whenever he had a chance, he was bombing. And you could tell that even just amongst them that they were starting to like bicker and stuff like that. And to me, I always find that's when Serbia plays the entire time, or plays their best, really. So big ups for Serbia. I will be honest, I think this is the best case scenario. I think Serbia should be in the VNL. It would have been very, very embarrassing for them as a country. And once again, I think it's a bad thing if Serbia isn't in the VNL. So I think best case scenario here, even though my team was the bad part of that. And we'll talk about Canada, but mostly I'll do another video about Canada specifically, like I did for the women. I'm happy to see Serbia stay in. They were able to do a really, really good job over this past weekend, even push Slovenia in a really, really fun match at home, 17-15. And I think that those two nations, like those two Slavic nations are Balkan nations. You guys let me know what you would like me to call you, but I think that's like an important rivalry over there in Eastern Europe, and Serbia needs to get on it, and they did a little bit. And yeah, congratulations, Serbia. You don't get relegated. You don't get second. You don't get second last. No prospects from Serbia, but I do think that they have a better history of producing prospects. And then number B, I wouldn't call them prospects, but you still have some young guys like Peric and Kujundžić and Masulovic. Like those, there is still a younger generation that can continue things forward, who are playing in quality leagues and for quality teams right now. So I do think that Serbia has way more prospects to offer than the Dutch, for example. Slovenia is not Balkan. Thank you, Pavle. I appreciate the distinction. But yeah, ultimately, shout out to our guy Pavle. I know he's our resident Serbian in the Discord amongst a few, but I know that he's pretty happy, and so are we. We love Serbia in volleyball. In general, I need to open this back up. Yeah, next up, I want to talk about the USA. Overall, this American team did better than I expected to. I really did, especially with the way that they started this tournament, with the struggles that they started. I think you really saw over the course of this tournament that Karch's influence. I don't know if we necessarily know what the style is, because I think there's still some questions there, but Karch's influence and his calming presence really helped the USA. I don't think they did do that well in their last two matches, although the second last match, I thought it was a bit of a banger against like a Germany squad with like Brand and Grosjean and some of their guys, and I thought they did pretty well. But overall, even though they just barely missed out on the playoffs, I think this is a good win for this American team. It did show that this team is not elite without their elite guys. But I think that's probably true for a little bit anyone. Like those top teams those top elite teams that are still at the upper echelon, or still saw some of their elite superstars and stars play, whereas the US saw none of them really, other than Shoji. So the fact that they had this younger group of just younger guys, like, I thought they did very well. 6-6 at the end of the day. That there's a group, right? Like there's the upper elite teams, I think, where you have Brazil, Italy, France, Poland, and Japan, and then after that, there's just a different group altogether. And if you look at the standings, there's almost nothing that separates like 6th to 13th. It's like from teams that go in from 6-6 to 5-7. And there's about a 4-point difference between those teams. So Yeah, overall, I think that this American team actually did quite well. A few of the guys, I think that it really gives a few of their guys an opportunity to, mature a little bit at the international stage. And I think Cooper Robbins is the obvious big winner out of all of this. He looks like he's going to be a threat. He looks like he's going to be pretty damn good. The fact that he's going to Japan too, where ball control is at a premium, and being a foreigner, you really have to be that guy. I think he's going to mature really well. I think Cooper Robinson is a guy that could potentially do a lot of things. Avoided. I mean, no, like I think avoiding relegation was never really on the table for this team. There's a distinct set of bad teams in the men's VNL, and the U.S. was definitely not any of them. And Quantum, I don't disagree. I was really, really impressed by Ethan Champlin. I think he can be a really, really good 3-4 utility guy on a roster. He can just come in. He's a little bit grimy. He's solid in serve receive. He has good court vision. He's just a steady presence. I really liked Ethan Champlin as well. And I do think, like, I've been a big proponent for getting Jordan Ewart out there for years. And I think maybe he's just a little bit past that time. Like you needed to get him into that area a little bit earlier. Other guys that I really liked from the U.S., as I mentioned, Champlin, Jacob Pasteur too. He's a guy that I got to see play for their B team back in 2022, and I always thought that he had international pace and speed on his arm, and he does. So I think that he's a guy that can really play at that international level. And of course, Merrick McHenry too. Like no one is really playing at his height. Well, not no one, but there's very few. Like the Kofis and the Semeniuks and the Simons and Hubers and those types of guy. I think he's showing that physicality that he can play at that next level. Yeah, actually, Rodriguez, you're right. Kyle Hobus did come up in the clutch. He's just like a big banger out there, and I kind of like it for this American team. So overall, you would have loved to have seen one of these teams pop through, and how close it was for teams like Slovenia and Cuba to get through. Yeah, it was. I think ultimately when you're looking at this American team where you still have Anderson coming back and Russell and Jishki and DeFalco and Christensen and Averill probably, and whoever else down the middle, like, yeah, all they did was bolster their team this year, and a few guys are looking like they're going to be pretty good. So, as a Canadian fan, actually, no, they're not even there. We'll talk about the whole. I've been learning some things about the Olympic qualification process, and we'll talk about that at another time. Not in this video, not today's stream, but overall, pretty good job by the USA. I will be giving them grades at some point, or putting them in a tier list. Next up, my team Canada, and now Canada is. Oh, we were so close. We were so close to showing that we could just be a good team steady. That first match against Slovenia, I did the stream. I thought the boys played really well. They ran with them. They were able to keep up until eventually Slovenia took over. Match number 2, they take care of business against the Netherlands, against the Dutch. It's what we want to see. First set against Serbia, boys are cooking, looking good, running their offense. And then everything just falls apart. And that is where I think that was one of the most frustrating match, I think, of the tournament. There just seemed to be nothing happening. And you could tell at first Lewis was like, okay, let's work into it. Let's give some cues and whatnot. But then at the end, he was just getting frustrated. And absolutely, it was just the boys. Like the boys just not finishing their checks, right? That's the best way to put it. Just not going that extra inch and blocking, not trying to make that shot just a little bit better. Just, playing the ball with a little bit, not enough ease, and just like playing a little bit too tight and not with not enough fire. And I mean, I know it was a bit of a difficult situation, but the boys had to play 3 matches in a row, but that was night 2 of 3. And yeah, you could tell that Lewis was a little bit frustrated. I think some of those starters, Heslinga has been playing quite a bit. Brody Hofer has been playing quite a bit. Finn has been playing kind of nonstop. there's a lot of guys who have been getting a lot of swings, and then I really liked how we ended up with things just with the emphatic note against Ukraine. And I've said it quite a few times that I thought Ukraine was going to beat us just because they were looking so physical and they were getting some good wins. But at the end of the day, Ukraine looked bad, and we used what was mostly a bunch of bench guys. That's kind of what it's been. Varga was unreal. I think he had 27 in the match. I really like Jordan Canham. We saw Jesse Elser come in too. I thought Luke set a really good offense. So it's a little bit frustrating for Canada, because had we beat Serbia had we beat Serbia in that match, we would have qualified for the finals, because we would have had the same record. We would have been 6-6, so we would have been tied with Cuba, and we would have had 20 points. So we would have been tied with Cuba, and we would have had them on set ratio. Cuba's set ratio is 28 and 26, whereas ours would have been, if we won 3-1 even against Serbia, ours would have been 25-22. So we would have had a better ratio, and we would have gone to the finals. So that sucks. I have no doubt that they know that. It would have been an awesome learning opportunity to come in, and you still would have had to play Italy, but they've played Italy a bunch of times this year, so maybe they would have known them pretty good. But ultimately, I think I'm pretty happy. Somebody said it in the chat that Dan Lewis is cooking, and yeah, he is. I think he's doing a great job with his team, and has for a number of years now. So the reality is I was talking to an alumni recently, and like our transition years, if you will, from the in 2022 and 2023, we were like 2-10 or 3-9. I think it was 3-9 both years at the VNL, maybe 2-10. So we just barely eked out. And this was a time that we were running our stars. We were running our guys like Mar and like Lepke, pretty much or Lepke wasn't all that much, but like Mar the entire time. So for this team to come in and have a better result, a way better result, look way better in so many metrics, and miss the finals by what should have been a winnable game. Serbia's always been kind of our kryptonite. Like I haven't looked at our head-to-head results against them, but they've always done pretty good against us. But the fact that like we had our destiny in our own hands, and we could have made it to the finals by playing some iffy ball along the way too, with a group of young guys like this, I'm extremely optimistic about what we're going to be able to see for the future. So yeah, it was a good all around. As I mentioned before, Skylar Varga was an absolute baller in that last match with 27 points, and you love to see it. Kind of wish the kid would go pro. I've heard there's maybe some offers for him on the table. I've heard there's maybe some teams out there looking to sign him. Skylar, if you're listening or watching, go pro, baby. That's just my own opinion. But yeah, absolutely go pro. I know you've had some great years at Long Beach, but other than school, I don't know if you have much to learn at the university level. But I do think you have a lot to learn at the pro level. Lewis is not frustrated enough with service errors. I think he's just realistic, to be perfectly blunt about it. We know in Canada in general, just by data, that we are a very bad first ball team. Right? We know that we're bad at serving and passing. And for us to be good, we need to be able to take those chances. And our good games, like the games like when we play against Ukraine and dominate, are the games that we serve well, are the games that we serve aggressively. And now we're still finding that rhythm, but that's why I think that spacing is there. Trust me, I'm really frustrated too with how many missed serves. Our serving, like when we played Serbia, it was terrible, and that was the big reason why we lost. But at the same time, it's the reality of it. And I think as a coach, it's clear to me what Lewis talks about and what he reacts about, the things that they're working on, the things that they're focusing on, where they're choosing to focus their energies. So yeah, I'm not too worried about him not getting too frustrated with the serving errors at all. Finally, I have to talk about it. I have to talk about them. It pains me really to go and praise these guys, but I have to. I have to. I don't know where Ronnie is, but I'm sure he's out there, and I'm sure he's going to come in as soon as he's, we've said his name, so I'm sure he's going to come in at some point. But Cuba has been looking damn good. Week 1, terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. 1-3, and they only beat Brazil, right? You 1-3, and they only beat Brazil, and that's classic. Like we saw that last year. I think that last year was the same thing. Lost so many big games, like would have put them into the Olympics, but they still beat Brazil. And week 1 was terrible. They go with the disaster to Belgrade. Visas getting lost or ordered late or not happening. Who really knows? They get their day of, and they go 3-1. They go 3-1 that week. And of course, like, their wins are whatever wins. They got very lucky with their schedule that week. They played the Dutch, they played Serbia, and they played Germany. So 3 teams not in the playoffs. And then they ultimately lose to Argentina that week. But still managed to go out there with the adversity. And like, when this team has adversity, when their team has the back against the wall, when they need to be scrappy, they are. And they will. So it's a lot of fun. But then they come into this week first, a 5-set banger with Bulgaria. 2 teams that can get a little bit fiery, and then they absolutely dominate Poland, and go out there and push France to 5. And I will give them, they had a long week. They have to be at Cuba at some point, so they go and lose to China in 5, whatever. We'll give them that. But this Cuban team is legit, and I'm seeing you people in the chat say it. Yant has been incredible. And I've said it a few times over the course, whether it's on the Discord or whatnot. Yant looks like a different player. Yant looks healthy. He's moving well. He's jumping high. He's swinging hard. He's playing aggressive. And I'm honestly really happy for it. You forget that he's only 24 years old, right? So he's kind of at the end of that maturation phase, but he's still kind of in it a little bit. And there's been so much focus on this roster for Lopez and Lopez and Lopez and Lopez, but I think Yant can be the guy. Yant was absolutely unreal. And yeah, I'm seeing either Kachopa or Yant for MVP of the group stage, and I can't disagree, but I'm gonna have to go with Yant over Kachopa. No doubt about it. The other guy for Cuba who really stepped up is Gomez. He is incredible. He just has a bit of attitude about them. He's got the chain. He's got a little bit of swagger. I bet you he talks mad shit. And that he's like out there just running his mouth, because he brings a little bit of swagger to this team, a little bit of a chip. He can like bomb serves from the baseline. He knows how to run an offense. He's dynamic offensively too, so you always have to be aware of him. And he sets a good game. Right now, I have to say this as a Canadian, and it's basically between us and Cuba to go to the finals, or to go to the Olympics from Norseca, right? I'm scared. This is the best this team has looked in a long time. It really is. And you still don't have Herrera, although I think Masso is incredible. And I think you would have to think about keeping Masso on the right side, especially like Concepcion and Simon is a dirty middle pairing. And Masso is just a big block. Herrera is a bad blocker. So if you can have Herrera coming off the bench, Cuba looks dynamic. Cuba looks good. I've said it too many times, and I'm expecting Ronnie to like burst through the door like the Kool-Aid Man or something here. But yeah, the worst point for Cuba is their libero. I have no idea where Gomez is. I have no idea. Was it Gomez? No, Garcia. I have no idea where Garcia is. But man, like that was, yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah, their libero is really not good. He's really not strong. And if they can get Garcia back, or someone who can just be there and be able to pass and not be a liability defensively, Cuba could be really good. Yeah, Luke D, you're right. Landy line for Simone in his first match back. 19 points and 6 blocks. He had an 87% efficiency. Yuck. Yuck. This man's an ageless wonder, I swear. I swear to God. Garcia's mom is ill with stage 4 cancer. Okay, well, first and foremost, we send our thoughts and prayers to Younger Garcia and his family and his mother. And we look forward to having him back on the court. So yeah, I couldn't go on in this show, in this podcast, and not talk about how good Cuba was. It honestly pisses me off a little bit to see how good Cuba was. Also because A, we didn't get to play them, number one, and then B, because one more win for us against Serbia and we would have been there instead of them. So yeah. Finally, to wrap up the teams that I want to talk about here, tough run for Ukraine. Tough run for Ukraine. I mean, it looked like they had it. It looked like they had it all. It looked like they had that fairy tale run, first year coming into the VNL. They don't have their best player. Like, hey, let's just go for a run here. Let's just figure it out. And instead, what ends up happening is they lose to two teams who are essentially in the relegation race. Well, one, yes, one, the other one, no. And they lose all of their ability. Like they come in, they beat the Dutch. And like that was the big thing, is that you had Ukraine playing both Serbia and the Dutch this week. They beat the Dutch in 5 and then go over, losing 3 games in a row after having won 4 games in a row, and really just like a tough way to go out. Losing 3-0 to Serbia, then losing 3-1 to Canada. If they just win one of those games, they're in. Right? If they just win one of those games, they're in. And unfortunately, there's too many of these scenarios across the VNL this year where it was just one more game and they could have got in. Like we just talked about Canada as well too. Like, you know, the US was in the same boat as well. And it just would have been a really, really good story to see the Ukraine in the finals. They just looked really tired at the end. They looked really tired. They really pushed their guys. And by the end, their main guys looked dog tired. They looked really, really tired. Like Tupci and I'm blanking on them right now, and I don't really feel like looking it up. I apologize. You guys definitely deserve more respect than that. But yeah, they just looked tired at the end of a really long VNL run. VNL is a beast, right? We all know that. It's even now, even though you've added in another break week, it's an absolute beast, and it was tough for Ukraine to kind of go for it, but man, they did a really good job, just barely missing out, and just one of those wins would have put them in the finals, and that would have been awesome to see. But a tough one for the Ukrainians. The only team that I haven't talked about really that I do want to talk about is Iran. Iran, at the end of the day, finishing 8th, would have gone to the finals if it wasn't for China having to go as hosts. This program has really bounced back, and they've done a really, really good job underneath Piazza to push through. And I mean, a 3-dong against a Bulgaria to finish it. They 3-dong China, of course, pushed Poland to 5. I really enjoyed watching this Iranian team play. Like, they have some nice pieces. Of course, Amin out there is balling. Piazza's my guy, so I've got to support him. Morteza. They're saying that he's setting a world record for hardest swing, but I don't know. 139, I feel like there's been harder than that. But it just seems like there's a bit of a match made in heaven there between Piazza and the Iranian team. And I had talked about it before that it was either going to be fantastic or is going to be terrible. And it looks like it was fantastic. It looks like it was really, really good for Piazza and Iran. It looks like it was a really nice matchup. So congrats to Iran as well too for a really nice run. Like, to me, as I said, there's the good teams. There's Brazil, Italy, France, Japan, and Poland. It was like those 5 teams were elite. And then after that, you had this run here from Slovenia, Cuba, Iran, Ukraine, USA, Argentina, Canada, and Germany. And now the reason it was so close, like Slovenia in sixth there, 7-5, with 19 points. Whereas you go down to Germany was 5-7. So just 2 matches of difference in terms of wins, and with 17 points. Argentina had the least amount of points in that group at 16, at 6-6. So, and Cuba had the most with 20. So you really just had a logjam of teams there from 6 to 14 of just teams who are really, really close. And if you take the top 5 teams and you take the next group of teams, that's 13. So that's one too many for the Olympics. And you got to keep in count at least one African team in there too. So, and then in the bottom group, you have Serbia, Turkey, China, and the Netherlands. Netherlands is going to be gone. I think it's going to be tough for all of those teams to kind of come up as well. But that next chunk of teams is going to be really, really interesting over the next few years. As I said, Slovenia, Cuba, Iran, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Argentina, Canada, and Germany. I left out the U.S., A, because we know the quality that they're going to get back, and B, they're already qualified. So everyone else there is lucky. We'll add U.S. into that upper group. Okay. But now, before we, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. I should take a quick sip of water here. Now, we have the finals that have been set. We have our final 8 teams. We're going to break down these matchups up a little bit as we wrap things up. I'm actually just going to make this a tiny bit bigger just so we can see it better. And we're at the end of the slideshow. So these are our 4 quarterfinals lined up. Honestly, Burkai, we can talk about World Championships in a little bit. I'm sure they did look like a completely different team, but so will our team when we get some players back. Yeah, I'm not too worried. If we lose to you guys, we lose to you guys. But let's talk about the final 8 here. The playoffs going down in China next week. I am also going to pull up the schedule just so I have it handy dandy here. And of course, this is the first matchup that we're going to talk about, Brazil against China. And now, I know there's a lot of hate for China. I will say, though, this Chinese team is a lot better than we would have expected. They do some really good things. I think Heinen is putting some really good things in place. You know, when we talked to him in Chicago, they were injured, right? They were dealing with some stuff, but they've got some young guys doing some good things. Do I think they have a shot against Brazil? Hell no. Not even close. I do remember a VNL a few years ago where China beat Brazil in the first week, and I don't think we're going to have a repeat of that at all. I think it's going to be a 3-dong. I think it's going to be 3 up, 3 down. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a bloodbath because I think that now China has the structural setup to be able to handle big teams and not get embarrassed because of Heinen. But I really don't think that they're going to be able to do anything against this Brazilian team. That's just the reality of it. And yeah, that's a little too bad. That will be the second game that we will watch next Wednesday. The first game is going to be Italy against Cuba. And now, I think this one could be a really interesting one. It can go one of 2 ways. As with Cuba, it can go one of 2 ways. One, Italy can be Italy and absolutely dismantle this team. Just pick them apart. Pick them apart, right? Just serve strong, block strong, frustrate Cuba all day. However, as I've said before, Italy has kind of just floated through this tournament. And I was talking to some people in Quebec City, and he goes, like the VNL, for the most part, isn't at the level of the Superliga. So it's hard for them to get up for it. It's hard for them to come out and try to play. So I do think that this is a situation where Cuba, and Cuba being Cuba, and Cuba being the team that can come out guns blazing, and they do so against the big teams, and they love to do that against the big teams. Italy's the one big team they haven't played. I think Cuba could come out guns blazing and come with a heat that Italy couldn't handle. So to me, it's going to be two ways. Either Italy dismantles Cuba or Cuba comes in. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Italy. It would be unreasonable and irresponsible for me not to. But I do think this could be a really, really good matchup. If Cuba does show up, and by the way, and like once again, you've got guys like Yant, like Simone, who know this Italian team too, who know these guys from playing in the Superliga. So there's a lot of familiarity as well as there too. So I think Cuba could be a really, really good, interesting, could give Italy a run for their money. And I think that match is going to go 5. I think it's going to be Italy in 5. I think it's going to be Brazil in 3 on the first day, and Italy in 5 on the first day as well. Moving on to the other side of the bracket, France against Slovenia to kick us off on the 31st. These are going to be super early in the morning. See, these are going to be super early in the morning, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch them, to be perfectly frank. Let's pull this up on the Volleyball World website, because it might give me a better time, because when I look out on the volley metrics, no. What's this? Volley Station. Oops, sorry, guys. Apologize. When I look on their website, it doesn't show. I think it shows like the general time. So let's look. Yeah, it's like 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. So the chances of me watching much of this men's Final Four is very, very low. Very, very low. But moving on to the other side of the bracket now, where we have France and Slovenia, Japan and Poland. France-Slovenia, I think, could be a really interesting one. I do think France is ultimately going to take it and just dismantle Slovenia. I don't know who they're not going to be activating. Engabeth, I know he's done, so this is probably their team, but this is still a very good French team that knows how to play their system, led by guys like Brizard and Clevenot. Théophore is a banger, and you've got a really bunch of good youth. I think this is going to be a fun one, but ultimately I think it's going to be France 3-1. Slovenia has just not really shown me that they can be that lethal. And they still haven't figured it out. Like before, they were just so solid, and this roster just isn't the same. I don't know if they're going to be bringing in like Urnaut or Chibul or anything like that, but I don't know. I don't think they can take on this French team. No, Engapeth didn't retire. He's just taking some time off. I think he has like an injury or something. I can't really remember. But no, Engapeth did not retire. Don't put that in my brain, or don't put that in my mouth. Don't quote me on that. Finally, the last quarterfinal that we're gonna have here is Japan and Poland. I think this one could be a really, really interesting one. Japan has been playing really good, pretty strong. They've done that without some of their guys over the course of this process too. So, and Poland just hasn't looked that good. Now, I think the Japan Poland matchup is very similar to the Japan Turkey matchup on the women's side, starting tomorrow, which I will still do a video about the women. I just wanted to wrap up the men first. And look, if Poland isn't careful here, I think Japan could catch them. I really think they could. I think that Japan could really knock them off. And we talked about it. Their serve receive has been their Achilles heel so far. But Pivchuk has not been that great in serve receive. And Japan is a really good serving team. They're a really aggressive serving team, right? They play really, really fast. And they play with really good precision. In past years, I would have called this Poland easily. But I don't know. I think I have a little bit more respect for the Japanese team right now and what they're able to do. So ultimately, I still think that this is I still think that this is Poland's to win, but I'm going to call this another banger. I'm going to call this another 5-setter. I might actually get up because it's going to be at 7 a.m. here. I might actually get up to watch that at 7 a.m. because that could be a good matchup. But that would give me Italy against Brazil and France against Poland. I think in this case, I would call Italy France for the finals. Yeah, I think I'm going to call Italy France for the finals, and I'm going to call Italy winning it. I think that they can get up enough for it, and like they've brought their entire team. They're going to have their entire roster. Yeah, Italy. Like I think Italy's going to ultimately win it. I think they're going to beat Cuba in the quarters. It's going to be a tight one. I think they're going to beat Brazil 3-1 in the semis, and I think France is going to beat Poland 3-1 in the other semis too. No. Is that what it is? Why are they playing the different pools on different days? Okay, sorry, I apologize. I was looking at the schedule and those teams. I wasn't looking at the bracket that I have for you and Gunner Fries. Okay, so I apologize. I'm gonna back that up. Still, my original calls are still good. Honestly, if that's the case, I'm gonna call an Italy Brazil final. I'm gonna call an Italy Brazil final because I think Italy's gonna be better than France. They played each other once this year. France won, and I don't think Italy's gonna let that happen again. So I think Italy's going to be better than France in this match. And then on the other side, I think Brazil is going to have more gusto against Poland. That team knows who they are, and they're not playing too tight. And Poland is gonna go play tight. So I think Brazil is gonna move on, and then I think Italy is gonna take care of business against Brazil 3-1 in the final. Cool. Does that work for everyone? I think Brazil's gonna get second. Yeah, I think Italy 1, Brazil 2, France 3, Poland 4. That's what I'm going for. Okay. Wow. Wow, Anna. Are you guys hating on my choices here? But yeah, that's what I have for the finals going on in Ningbo, China. They will be going on next week. This week we have much easier viewing with the women in Poland. But we'll talk about that maybe a little bit. Maybe I'll come do another live and talk about that in a little bit. But if not, I'll do that. Oh, I guess I have to do that ASAP. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much, everyone. To wrap it up, I think Italy's going to win. And this has been a pretty fun VNL, minus the obvious unpleasantness. Any questions here in the chat before we finish things up? No, they've actually already announced their roster for Poland, and it is not going to be Kurek or Kaczmarek. It is going to be Sasak and Bolange. All right. Thank you very much. I love you all. We will see each other this week. Definitely will be doing a live watch along at some point. And yeah, thank you very much. I love you all. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Peace.